So this is a generalized eukaryotic cell. You'll see in any textbook, introductory biology textbook, a generalized eukaryotic cell. And the reason why they always say it's a generalized cell is because, in fact, no actual cell looks like these generalized cells, but they're trying to get as much information into these as possible. So consistently, you see within eukaryotic cells a nucleus. The nucleus actually is double membrane. There's two lipid bilayers. Although it's really like there's a spherical sac that surrounds what is known as the chromatin, which is what the DNA, the form the DNA takes when the cell's not dividing. And this nuclear membrane, or nuclear envelope as it's called, is continuous physically with something called the endoplasmic reticulum. Some of the endoplasmic reticulum has these structures called ribosomes on the outside, and as a consequence is referred to as rough endoplasmic reticulum. It's simply the way it looks when you take a really good picture of a cell through an electron micrograph. You can see that there are these reticulating features that are kind of rough looking, and that's the rough endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum is in communication with this thing called the Golgi apparatus. But the way it's in communication is through the movement of vesicles. Vesicles are also membrane-enclosed little blobs that contain things either in their lumens, in their interior, or in their lipid bilayers. And they fuse and make up the Golgi, and then things happen in the Golgi, and then additional vesicles are made, and these additional vesicles get moved to different parts of the cell, including to the surface of the cell, to what's known as the plasma membrane, to either release things into the extracellular environment or add to the plasma membrane, both membrane and proteins to the plasma membrane. And you also have ribosomes that are free floating about the cytoplasm. And you additionally have these things that are called, at least one can call them, endosymbionts. One category is of endosymbionts are the mitochondria. This is where cellular respiration takes place. These are found in all of our cells. This is the organ that makes cellular respiration possible. And in plants and algae, there's also things called plastids, which are the chloroplasts, but also the amyloplasts and chromoplasts, as we'll see or have seen in lab, are forms of plastids. And these things are actually bacteria-like organelles. They're able to divide more or less on their own. And they have DNA inside of them. And they also have ribosomes inside them, but a different kind of ribosome than what you see on the outside of them. So all of these things and more together make up the eukaryotic cell. So one way to abstract all of that is to look at these cells in terms of membranes. So all of these cells, the eukaryotic cells, have the plasma membrane. In fact, all cells have a plasma membrane. That's the membrane that defines the outside of the cell. And then eukaryotic cells all have membranes inside of the cell. So going back, that constitutes a membrane, that's a membrane, that's a membrane, that's a membrane, that's a membrane. There's membranes here, there's membranes here. All sorts of internal membranes in eukaryotic cells. You don't see these internal membranes to anywhere near this degree in prokaryotic cells. So you've got different compartments. You've got the outside of the cell. You've got what is known as the cytoplasm of the cell that's contained within the plasma membrane that defines the outside of the cell. And then you've got all of these additional membranes that are inside the cell. And within those additional membranes, you have these volumes that are referred to as the lumens. Either the lumen of what's known as the endomembrane system inside of the endoplasmic reticulum, inside of the Golgi, inside of vesicles. And you also have things like the interior of the mitochondria, which is the mitochondrial matrix, the interior of the chloroplast, which is the stroma, also the interior of the nucleus, which consists of something called nucleoplasm. What this generally means is that eukaryotic cells are full of different compartments. They've got different rooms, in a sense, all throughout their cells. And when you have different compartments, it means you can have chemistries going on in one compartment that are incompatible with what happens in a different compartment, but you can have them both going on at the same time because they're literally in different places. So eukaryotic cells are much more complicated in part because they, in fact, to a large extent, because they've got all these compartments, and therefore they can have all sorts of different things going on simultaneously in the cell.